It's noon and time to begin our program. I'm Paddy Tillett, board member of the City Club of Portland, and we're delighted to welcome you to a City Club Friday Forum. As you can tell, our registration was unexpectedly robust, so we apologize to those of you who've yet to find a seat. If there are any empty seats in the middle, please shuffle into them so people can find the ones at the side. This event is available on City Club's YouTube channel at youtube.com/PDX oh, and please silence your phones. Now it's my honor to introduce former Congressman Earl Blumenauer and the panelists. Erin Graham, President and CEO of OMSI, D'Artagnan Kaliman, Vice President Philanthropy and Partnership at the 1803 Fund, and Nolan Leinhardt, Director of Planning and Urban Design at ZGF Architects. But first, a word about the City Club of Portland. City Club's mission is to inform our members and the community in public matters, reminding all of their responsibilities as citizens. We do this through non-partisan public forums, debates, and research that inform us about elections and public policy. City Club is committed to providing a space for civic dialogue that encourages respectful discussion and positive change. City Club members provide our ideas, lead our conversations, conduct our research, and plan programs that address issues important to our community. Members are directly engaged in every step, and this is something which is unusual about the City Club, and I think one of its great virtues. Members' dues and donations make it possible for City Club to offer programs such as this free to the public. Two of our upcoming events are on Friday, January the 9th, when we'll feature soon-to-retire Michael Jordan reflecting on his experience as Portland's first city administrator with Sophie Peel of Willamette Week. And then on Monday, January the 26th, we present an Oregon legislative preview with moderator Jennifer Williamson and panelist Dick Hughes of the City Capital Insider with Carlos Fuentes of the Oregonian. City Club Portland welcomes all individuals who care about our region. You can learn more about events, membership, and reach our website, pdxcityclub.org, if you join today. And you can take $40 off the membership fee if you use the membership discount code NEW in capital letters 40. You can also use the QR code on the front desk to join or contribute to City Club. We need your support for this important work. For developing today's program, we offer special thanks to Kayla Kennett, our Communications Director, and to G.B. Arrington of the Built Environment Committee for enabling us to produce this program. Finally, let's take a moment to thank our season sponsors that pay for this venue and our video production services and enable us to present our programs to the public free of charge. They are AARP Oregon, Chevron, Fight Against Sex Trafficking, and Don Sterling Fund for the Oregon Community Foundation. We thank each one of them. Now to today's program. For more than 50 years, our moderator, Earl Blumenauer, has dedicated his career to an elected state, local, and congressional official to building livable communities, places where people are safe, healthy, and economically secure. Many will recall that Earl oversaw the completion of Portland's 1988 Central City Plan. As President and CEO of OMSI since 2020, Erin Graham is leading the organization's 20-year vision, including development of the new OMSI district. Erin has served in key roles at OMSI for more than a decade. She holds a JD MBA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and serves on the boards of the Association of Science and Technology Centers, TriMet, and the Human Access Project. Busy lady. D'Artagnan B. Kaliman serves as the Vice President of Philanthropy and Partnership for the 1803 Fund. he maintains a sharp focus on how philanthropy can be a vehicle for sustainable change and community reclamation. Mr. Kaliman has led both community and national programs to elevate these voices and spur systemic change at both local and federal levels. Nolan Lienhardt is a Principal and Director of Planning and Urban Design at ZGF Architects. He's an urban strategist, savvy at navigating technical, community, and political perspectives, while guiding design concepts and challenging district-scale developments and site-specific projects such as Portland's Broadway Corridor Central City Master Plan and Denver's Civic Center Transit District Plan. For Governor Tina Kotek's Central City Task Force, he served as chair of the Value Proposition Committee. And with that, Congressman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Patty. We couldn't have this conversation without your linking with us for going back, I think, some 50 years. And it's appropriate we've got Nolan here. ZGF and his mentor, Greg Baldwin, helped establish these concepts that I think animate us all. Now, I have for years had a mantra in my office that I can't get bad news fast enough. And I will say that our friends from the Oregon, at the Oregon Business Summit, did it in spades in terms of dishing out all the things that are wrong, and that's okay. We ought to acknowledge, in very real sense, shortcomings, challenges, problems, not paper them over. But if I had my way, I would have had a slightly different emphasis in terms of what to focus on. I've been giving variations of this speech for at least 4 years, talking about all the elements in the central city that after all these years are coming together. This is an exciting time, and you've got a panel that reflects that diversity, that experience. I want to thank the City Club for waving the banner, GB, tireless efforts to assemble this. But this is a demonstration of things that people care about. Randy Gregg has had overflow crowds. Portlanders want to focus on the reality of today and opportunities for the future. Now, I've been going around trying to meet all of the people in the City Council. There's a lot of them. Interesting folks, interesting opportunities. At each stop, I give them a copy of Bill Nato's biography. I'm halfway through. And I think it's worth all of us thumbing back and reviewing what we were able to do with Bill, who got more done spending less of his own money probably than anybody else in North America. But being a catalyst, from Artquake to riverfront housing, the remodel of City Hall, Bill epitomized that experience. And I think it's important for all of us to focus on that. I do think that it's worthwhile for us to focus on some of the things we've done in the past with the relationship between the city and the people they serve. Now, I was told that there was a city council session yesterday dealing with a number of these key elements, but I was also told that there was none of the project principals who were part of developing that program. Now, the new city government has got a lot going on. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're learning a whole bunch of things. But one of the things that the new city government, I think, needs to focus on is the nature of the relationship with the partners that have made Portland's progress possible. It's not always the easiest thing to do, trust me. At times, it can be a challenge. but it is worth taking the time and energy to connect the dots, to make sure that everybody who is a part of these contentious issues are part of it, including, I mean, I think some of the giants who used to work in the city government, people like the late Don Gardner, Vic Rhodes, they were sticklers for observing the rules of the road and making sure that the city policies weren't watered down and ignored. But they also focused on how do we get things done? How can we work together? If it didn't quite fit, they would work with us to be able to make the adjustments necessary with the alliance, the resources, to make sure that we could do great things. And the city of Portland has done great things and is positioned to do a lot more. And you're going to hear from 3 people who are at the epicenter of this. Now, one of the areas that I am most proud of trying to help a little bit around the edges is the OMSI district. And Aaron has inherited Nancy's mantle, guiding the opportunities for the OMSI district that is the cornerstone of the revitalized Central City. It is the most transit-dense area in the entire state, and the master plan was probably worth the effort to be able to set the stage going forward. Montaigne represents the private philanthropic center. His colleague, Rakai Adams, talks about 1,000-year investments. That's good. I would settle for a century. In some cases, I'd settle for a decade. But it's important to have this longer framework. And it is important to link with the private philanthropic center to harness the energy today. And Nolan, you can't have something dealing with the future of the Central City without having ZGF here, the spirit of Greg Baldwin. And Nolan has inherited that mantle and has been involved with more master plans in Portland and around the West than I can count. He understands the nature of those partnerships and thinking comprehensively. We could not have 3 better people to guide us through this and then maybe inspire a little interaction with all of you. So at this, I will just turn it over, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you.
Let us go. Be at the podium. Seize the moment.
Well, thank you all. Good afternoon. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in a room full of people that really care about the future of Portland. I'm Erin Graham. As Earl said, I'm the president and CEO of OMSI, and I'm actually celebrating my 15th year at the organization this month, which is hard to believe. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you all, how many of you have been to OMSI? Okay, that's great. So we've got a starting point.
Anybody not been?
Yes, and if you haven't, please come visit me. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you to kind of maybe evolve your thinking a little bit about our organization is that OMSI has been around now for 80 years. And the transformation that I have experienced in the organization in the last 15 has been remarkable. So at this point in our evolution, OMSI is so much more than a museum. We are a major statewide, regional, and even national attraction. We have programming that goes to every single county in the state, and we actually have a 7-state reach. We have 2 outdoor camps, one in Fossil, Oregon, and one in Newport, Oregon, where we do outdoor school and summer residential camps, and those immersive experiences are completely transformative for youth. We build science exhibits and travel them to other science centers around all of North America. We have 10 on the road right now, and over the course of those science exhibit life, they influence more than 4 million people who see them. And so we know that our mission to inspire curiosity, to engage people in the exchange of ideas so that they are equipped to take informed action is more important now than it ever has been. And we feel really motivated to carry that mission as broadly and as far as we possibly can with our partners and the communities that we serve. With a lot of community input, we just launched our third 5-year vision toward our very ambitious, our third 5-year plan toward our very ambitious 20-year vision. And that includes building new career pathways programming, because we heard from people in urban and rural communities that they want their children and youth to have access to opportunity. That includes expanding early childhood education programming that we do and training teachers both in home and in school. And we're now focusing on literacy and early science skills, because we know literacy is important to the future of this state. And we're also really focusing on climate programming. So I look forward to inviting you all to our new Climate Science Hall that will be opening in April at the museum and will be the hub of how we learn about resiliency and active hope in communities. And I share all of that with you because the OMSI district is not just a development project. The OMSI district is a key piece of our 20-year vision and the 20-year vision that we have created with partners that is weaving together this thriving innovation district rooted in arts and innovation and culture and science learning that will spread opportunities throughout Portland, the region, and we believe even nationally. It is an opportunity to transform 24 acres of brownfields and parking lots and former industrial lands in the heart of the city into a vibrant, thriving neighborhood. We're looking at 1,200 units of affordable and market rate housing, up to 24 acres of new mixed-use development. It will take advantage of the amazing transportation infrastructure that Earl mentioned, the Tillicum Crossing and the Orange Line and the station that's built there, really delivering on the promise of what transit-oriented development can be. We are also using the opportunity of the district to reestablish tribal presence on the Willamette River in the center city where it has been fully erased. OMSI has worked with tribal and indigenous communities for many, many years, more than 30. We actually developed a salmon camp with Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission in the 80s. And now Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission is our core partner in developing a new waterfront education park that will help to reconnect people to the land and the river and help them learn about science and stewardship. We're also working with the Northwest Native Chamber to develop a Center for Tribal Nations vertical development in the OMSI district that we hope will be right across the street from OMSI, and will also have public-facing spaces where people can learn about the 9 federally recognized tribes, but the 380 tribes represented in Portland as the home for one of the largest urban indigenous populations in the United States. At full build-out, we know that the OMSI district has an opportunity to have tremendous impact in economic development here. It's projected to create more than 11,000 jobs and $1 billion in economic output. That is significant, and it will take time. But what we also know is that our goal from the beginning is that this project creates shared prosperity for OMSI and all of our partners. We're not developers. We're a private nonprofit, and we don't have an endowment. So in many ways, if we do this right, what we're doing is really expanding the opportunity for mission impact for OMSI and our partners in the district and beyond. One of the questions that we were asked is, what helps attract people to the Central City? And I can say OMSI is one of those things. We have 1.2 million participants each year, and we have fully rebounded since the pandemic. We are actually fully maxed out on space. We don't have enough spaces for CTE classes. We don't have enough spaces to realize some of the partnerships that we're talking about with industry. So we're really thinking a lot about what are the different kinds of places that we can help to create or catalyze that will bring people together in a spirit of entrepreneurship, exploration, and really thinking differently about how we gather and how we create neighborhoods and communities. This has been a public-private partnership from the beginning. We have had a vast coalition of people who have given us input over decades to get to this point. And we have been successful in securing funds for the really important infrastructure that has to go in first, the streets and utilities to support the density of development we're talking about. So City of Portland, Metro, State of Oregon has been a significant partner. And we have also been privately fundraising. And we anticipate, well, we know, because we've done some campaign planning, that when we get the public infrastructure pieces put into this district, that our community is ready to step up in a big way. People said, when you are ready, when you know what the expansion plans are and the partnership opportunities, and we know that this development can happen, we are ready to give generously to this vision for the future. So we plan over the next several years to be doing that planning and ultimately to launch what I think will be OMSI's largest campaign since it moved to the waterfront in the early 90s. And with that, I just want to say thank you again. I see many partners in the room. We wouldn't have reached this point without each and every one of you. And I think this is really one of the most exciting civic projects that we can all get behind and all really make happen. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
That was weak. Y'all getting sleepy from the chicken already? Good afternoon. There we go. Good to be here with you all. Can you hear me back there? Is the mic loud enough? Okay, good. I am D'Artagnan Calaman with the 1803 Fund. I serve as our Vice President of Philanthropy and Partnership. I have been with, Aaron said all those, thank you, Aaron, for going first. But Aaron said all those wonderful statistics about years she's been around, years she's been with the organization. Well, guess what? 1803 Fund has been around for 32 months. And I've been there 32 months from the beginning. So thank you, Aaron, for kicking us off. Thank you, Congressman Blumenauer, for the opportunity. Thank you, GB and City Club for giving us the opportunity to be here with you all. As I kick off today, I want to start by saying 1803 Fund has been a vision of the community of Black Portland, I would say, for centuries. And as in 2020, as we were dealing with COVID throughout our country and the killing of George Floyd, one of the requests that our former board members, Tony Hobson and Ron Herndon, made to Phil Knight was a question of what's your skin in the game as we think about Black Portland as well as Black America. And to Phil and Penny Knight's credit, they said, let's talk about that. And as they started that conversation and that initial request, one of the first questions from Phil was, well, what does the business plan look like? And Tony and Ronnie looked at each other and said, yeah, what does that look like? And they said, we should probably go reach out to someone named Rakaya Adams. Rakaya is a dear friend of mine. I was telling Earl and the table earlier that we go back just a little bit to third grade, growing up in this community together. She is one of my closest and dear friends. We went to elementary school together, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman together, and then on to Catlin Gable together. It is both a privilege and an honor to do this work with Miss Rakaya Adams. So she sends her regards. She's not able to be with her today, but now you're stuck with me. So 1803 Fund, in case folks are wondering, 1803 itself it really signifies the spirit of York, who came with Lewis and Clark on the trail. York being an enslaved gentleman who was promised freedom to come from Kansas City over to the Northwest, left in 1803. And so we are really signifying the spirit and the hopes of York. And that's what 1803 Fund was named after, for folks who are wondering. Secondly, I will talk about our mission. So the mission of 1803 Fund, and I'm going to read it because some things have changed and is newer, and I haven't memorized it yet. But we invest in and for Black Portland, advancing generational wealth and well-being through ownership, design, and collective power. Our vision is a rooted and prosperous Black Portland. And as we think about rebuilding Albina, I won't go into all the history about why that is, but for many years, at least over the last 60 years plus, Black Portland has been displaced. We've seen redlining, and I won't go into all the history. I'll let you all look it up if you don't know it. But that's why 1803 Fund exists. We were blessed with initial seed funding, thanks to Penny and Phil Knight, of $400 million to start this organization. What I would tell you is that we have both we're not your traditional philanthropic organization, nor a traditional investment organization. We see ourselves as an investment for the people. So when we say we invest in Black Portland, that is all of our grant making, that is really working to serve Black serving organizations. And we are focused around 3 priority areas in culture, education, and place, as we think about rebuilding the place of Albina. And then when we say we are investing for Black Portland, that is all of our work in real assets and investments. Anyone see announcements about 1803 Fund last week or so? Yes. A couple, okay, well, pretty good. I didn't get all the hands about OMSI, but that's a good start. I appreciate that. So last week we made an announcement about our initial investments in real assets, and that was to the tune of about $70 million in rebuilding Albina. And so we have the grain silo, which you all, I assume, have seen in your lives, and which we are imagining as Albina Riverside and reconnecting Black Portland and Portland overall to the river, as well as some initial investments into about 20 lots down in the area which we call the low end, which is located where North Russell and North Interstate under the Fremont Bridge resides. And so these initial investments, we see opportunity to fund about $700 million in initial jobs and economic revitalization in Albina and Portland community. And so after about 32 months and building, starting from scratch of an organization, we're pretty proud about where we are to make those initial investments. Lastly, what I would say is, as we think about our work in Albina, we see this as an opportunity for Black Portland and an investments, as Earl talked about, 1,000 years from now. I'm similar to you, Earl. I would settle for a decade and beyond, but Rakai won't let me do that, Earl. But when we think about our investments, we are thinking about the future. I think far too often we have spent our time and really focused on in philanthropy, I would say. I'm a 25-year philanthropist, so I'll say that. But mutual aid and giving hasn't really changed the circumstances and the reality for Black folks. Not in the country, not in the world, and certainly not in Black Portland. And as someone, myself, Rakai, and a number of our staff who have grown up in Albina, this work is extremely important. It's a blessing, but also extremely personal for us. And so as we think about the work that we are about and making investments in our community, we want to ensure that that's sustainable. And so as we think about ways that we are working to utilize philanthropic dollars to see this work forward, we hope that this is really spurring, along with OMSI and the work that Nolan's involved in, and many of our partners, Prosper Portland, from a city standpoint, and many of our partners in this room and outside of this room, that we are spurring change for Portland overall. We are certainly focused on Black Portland and centering around Albina, but we hope that we are a beacon of light for the rest of the community. So that's how I see our work in Central City, and thank you for the opportunity this afternoon.
Thanks, D'Artagnan, and thanks everybody for being here. I love the enthusiasm that all of us are showing for our Central City. And since we all led with statistics, next July will be 20 years since Patty called me and offered me a job at ZGF. So it's great to have friends and mentors in the room here. So since that day, I got to work on a number of Central City plans here in Portland. Patty and I worked on the Schnitzer campus together. On the Willamette down here, we worked on the original OMSI district plan during the Central City plan times. And then because of a lot of that work and the work that Patty and Greg and others had done, we got to go out all over North America and beyond and work on planning. And through that, get a little bit of exposure to how does what we're doing in Portland and our central city compare to what's happening in other peer central cities, Denver, Seattle, Vancouver, Washington, D.C., and beyond. And so through that lens, I want to talk a little bit more less about projects, since D'Artagnan and Aaron did that, and a little bit more about the context of what kind of civic structures and systems and organizations are necessary for a central city to thrive, or in our case, recover. And my most recent experience is serving, as Earl said, on the Governor's Central City Task Force, which started in 2023. And I have to just acknowledge the governor has given more attention to downtown Portland than probably any governor in at least 30 years, if not 40. And it needs it, but a lot of what I credit her for, was bringing everyone to the table. So in August of 2023, she invited about 55 civic leaders and leaders of institutions and business and government together, including the mayor and the county chair and heads of many agencies. And I think she sent the invitation out in the first week of August, and by August 22nd, we had gotten maybe 52 out of 55 people in the room. So it's a sign of the power that the governor has when she convenes people. And so, as Earl said, I was the chair of the Value Proposition Committee, which was named so by Eco Northwest, classic economist title, and people quickly decided to call it the Optimism Committee, which was basically, while the other committees were focused on drugs and homelessness and cleanliness and taxes, we were the fun committee. We talked about what is it that's happening in downtown in Central City, Portland, that actually makes people want to be there, acknowledging people have a choice. Where they live, where they spend their time, their money, where they work, where they put their businesses, and tourists, they could go to Seattle, and what's going to make them come to Portland. So we did have fun, although I'll tell you in that first 6 months, most of the attention was on those other issues. There was a real sense of urgency around them. And so I think out of the final top 10 recommendations in December of that year, we had one. And it was focused on advancing infrastructure for district plans. Subsequent to that, the governor kept the focus, and last year we advanced that thinking and started to produce the report that came out this past June called All In on Central City Portland. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go look at it. There is both a short 8-page executive summary and then a much longer report. But what it really did was a couple things. It framed what is the issue, what is the state of our downtown, and as Earl and our friends at the Business Summit noted, we've got a lot of work to do. But it was surprising to me, the blind men and the elephant was really how we were experiencing the downtown. Everybody was seeing the problems and the potential solutions from different perspectives. But a big challenge was also that many, especially in the business community, had this feeling that nothing's happening. Why isn't someone doing something? And so one of the pages in the report is super tiny, but maybe some of you in the front can see all these dots. You know, there were something like 72 initiatives that were underway. Some of them underway on their own engine, and some of them needing support, needing coordination from government. And so just being able to portray that and then describe it a little bit in the report was an important goal. We also talked about what is it about the Central City that is working. We've made tremendous investments in infrastructure, education, and a whole range of reasons that it will continue to be a highly competitive place within the region to locate a business, locate an educational institution and other institutions. But then as we go forward, we should build back better. And so not simply think about how do we get back to 2019, but how do we look forward to 2029, 2039. And so we focus on the ways that it is our region's gathering place as a civic location for arts and culture and sports and all those things, the way that it is already and can be even better as a complete neighborhood for residential uses. And then finally, a hub of innovation and opportunity with PSU here, a number of different innovation activities happening, and just the benefits that we get from having it be a workplace. So that was all helpful, and I laugh frequently that as a planner I wanted it to have a whole bunch of actions at the end. And the reality is it really focused on one, and that was creating a civic roundtable for the Central City. And ending a task force and saying the next stage is a roundtable, might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but it really wasn't. What it was is it was an acknowledgement that at some point the governor needs to zoom back out and focus on state-level issues. It was incredible that she spent 2 years focused as much as she was on it, and she'll continue to be invested. But what we're now going to do, and this would have been a very different talk 2 weeks ago, but last week the mayor announced that he will be co-chairing, and I will be co-chairing, the Central City Roundtable. And so that is intended to continue the momentum of the task force. I'm appreciative sometimes when a new mayor or elected official comes in, they want to scrap everything that happened and make their own way. And so the fact that he sort of recognized the value of it and actually has adopted the goals that were in the report in June is really significant. So there are some specific metrics that we'll be focusing on. How do we get to fully recovering our foot traffic in the Central City? How do we ensure that delivery of 2,500 new housing units in the pipeline, and then 2 million square feet of net office absorption? Of course, we haven't started meetings, so I don't know how we're going to do any of those things, but this morning on LinkedIn, I saw the director of the Central City District in Philadelphia announce that they've had 3,500 housing units in the last 2 years. So this 2,500 unit seems more accessible when you think about it that way, but it is going to require a lot of coordination. And so one of the things I think this roundtable can do is apply the pressure, continue to keep our eye on those targets, identify if they're not moving forward, why not, who else do we need at the table, how do we need to provide support to the agencies and organizations that are doing those things. So I know we want to leave room for conversation, so I won't go on and on into too much detail. I think there'll be some dialogue with Earl that might get into some more detail. So thank you.
And our goal is to have some conversation, spirited discussion, penetrating questions. There are people in the room that will do that. I'd like to take advantage of the prerogative of the moderator to put a couple of things on the table for you. One, in my spare time, I'm spending a fair amount of energy at Portland State University. Portland State is the largest area of economic opportunity in the Central City. It's 44% of the land area. It has been the source of most of the investment over the last 10 years. As part of the build-out of Portland State, it still has, despite enrollment decline, it's got 20,000 people a week on the campus, 5,000 people who work there, and adding a couple of $1 billion of economic activity. I wonder if our panel would comment a little bit on the role of Portland State and the other educational institutions like OHSU, the Reed, Lewis and Clark. We've got a rich ecosystem of educational organizations, and I wonder if any of you would comment on what you see going forward with either Portland State or other aspects to build on the largest area of family wage jobs in the city, education.
So I'm going to zoom out a little bit on Earl's comment and just note that we have these educational institutions. Compared with a lot of other regions, they're actually quite close to one another. We may think of Lewis and Clark as being pretty far away, but it's quite close. 8-10 minute drive. The other institutions you noted, most of them are connected by transit. Some of them the same actual light rail line, and there was a lot of light rail and streetcar, and there was a lot of intention and thinking done about that. So PSU, OHSU, OSU has some programs in there, Portland Community College, OMSI, all connected. And so I think not only should we think about them in the individual contributions that they make, but the synergy that we get from having them and their relationship to one another. Particularly OHSU and PSU are also big drivers of housing, and the South Waterfront was a beneficiary of that. The Central City's been a beneficiary of that. So as we think about how do we get 2,500 new housing units, PSU's talking about doing more student housing, and we should look at students as a really important part of that math.
Yes, no? Okay, oh, it is. Thank you. To add on that, so we partner with all of those educational institutions, and one of the things that we're talking about is a need to collectively address Oregon's graduation rates, because the success of these institutions also requires attracting students and having students show up who are ready to learn and are supported as humans to learn. So we've been having some conversations about how we can think about career discovery and career training differently and earlier. Like that should start in 5th grade, if not earlier. And too often, kids are making decisions about their future based on a very limited set of information. And so if we're really going to help people to reach their full potential, then I think that there is a different way that we can be working together much earlier, and then to help kids to understand the opportunity ahead of them, whether that is in an institution of higher education or some other kind of skills-based learning that will enable them to have a really prosperous life and the kind of life that they want to lead.
Super. Let me put a political question on the table, something that really didn't get proper focus at the summit. When Sharif was talking about OHSU and the impact of the tram, some of you remember when there were people on the city council who wanted to stop the tram because it was over budget and it wasn't really going to go anyplace. I mean, this was serious.
It was a 3-2 vote.
Could we do that today? Could we build the tram today in the current political climate, the organizations, some of the learning curve of the various, could we build the tram if it faced those same challenges? Not a trick question, just.
No one's going to answer. No.
I think we, again, I'm sorry to take your questions apart when you ask them, but I think it's not could we build the tram, but could we create the argument and the sort of the framing that we needed to make the tram a reality. And so it wasn't just, the tram has value. It was, this is what's necessary to keep OHSU in Portland, and because they don't have enough room to expand on the hill, they needed the space on the waterfront. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we built a neighborhood around them that could, in the future, accommodate housing and med tech jobs and all those things. And so I think the answer is yes, if we think of it from that perspective. And so OMSI is building an argument about the ways that they can be an anchor for growth of supportive uses around them. 1803 and ABT have a really strong philosophy about what is the anchor and what is the ecosystem of shared uses around them. So I think the answer is yes, and then the question becomes, how do we empower City Council to align and arrange the funds necessary to make that infrastructure happen?
Okay, let's turn it over to you. Comments, questions?
You already answered for us. You did good.
Thank you.
One in the center.
Those of you who have questions, I'd like you to line up here. Remember that asking questions is a privilege of City Club membership, so be sure to state your name and that you're a member, and make it a question of under 30 seconds, please. You're in exactly the
I'm
right
in exactly the right place. Okay, this question is for Aaron. I think there's an ill-considered, in my opinion, notion of putting a stadium, a basketball, an MLB stadium in the south waterfront wedged between the Ross Island Bridge and the Tillicum with no parking. And so they envision, what they are saying is that, well, people can park at OMSI. Doesn't sound like there's going to be room for that. So have you folks at OMSI been talking about how you might deal with this proposal?
We have. Yes, and actually parking is a central issue for us because with the visitors that I mentioned that we already have coming, our future plan includes developing over our parking lots. And so what our future plan will need is structured parking. And we have talked about whether it's baseball or whether it's all the other partners that we have on the Central East Side that also have constrained parking. How could we work together with the city and with others to have some sort of structured parking solution that could be next to the station and also help support ridership for the transportation? So yeah, it's an active conversation. And I don't know whether it will ultimately be baseball, but we will need a structured solution. All of the smart parks are on the west side, but the population has shifted to the east side.
And I'm sorry, I didn't follow the rules. I'm Corleen Kraft, member, and there are some 30,000 people expected for these games. Yeah. So,
yes, thank you. Yes, and plug for parking on the east side.
Hi, my name is Sue Schubert, and I'm not a member of the City Club.
You should be by the end of today.
I'll think about that. My question is, well, first of all, a statement, and that is that my husband and I love living in Portland. And we come downtown a lot and patronize museums and restaurants and symphony and all the music. I'm wondering what's being done or something's being done to think about the businesses that are here and how difficult it is to establish a business and what effort and money people have put into their businesses. And I have some favorite ones I won't mention, but at any rate, what are we doing to support them, keep them here, and tell them we love them?
So I almost want to call on to another member of the audience, but I want to acknowledge Cornell Wesley. If you haven't met him, he's our relatively new Prosper Portland executive director. And what I can say, I am a member of the advisory committee for Advance Portland, which is the economic development strategy for the city. And they're asking that question. There's a lot of small and medium-sized businesses who are there. And I think right now, having a small business anywhere is challenging. I think there are some unique challenges in Portland. One of them that we've heard a lot in the task force and in the Advanced Portland meetings is the tax structure is very difficult. There are permitting challenges that are uniquely difficult. So I would say the elevation of those issues is strong, and I think there's some specific considerations like a change to the business license tax that are happening. So we're making progress, but there's a lot of stress being expressed in those conversations.
I would just say it's not just small businesses, but it's medium and, well, Nordstrom stay here. And I know that maybe, not everyone shops at Nordstrom, but it's a really important, what do we call that? Anchor, thank you.
Now join the City Club.
Okay, thank you. Randy Miller, and yes, I am a City Club member. One concept that could integrate two of the issues that have arisen from what we've discussed here, and that is utilizing the campus at PSU and also our 2,500 units of aspiring housing, and that is for senior housing to be built on the PSU campus. This has happened elsewhere around the country with remarkable results. We don't die anymore at 65, and there's a lot of years left on seniors that can utilize, and so many are so active and aspirational to increase their learning. So what other academic campuses have found is that the activity of seniors have actually mobilized and actually triggered almost a renaissance on some of the academic campuses because of their activity. So I'm wondering if, I've talked to Ann Cutt about this, Earl, I'm just wondering whether or not there has been any thought to that concept and if we could make that advance.
I think it's well stated, Randy. There is a very active program at Portland State so that older adults can take advantage of free tuition, and they're working hard to expand that engagement. But the notion of integrating senior housing on some of the parcels that could benefit it, I think has great merit. There are separate funding sources for some of that. It's not easy, and there are competing demands. But I think looking at senior housing integrated into the overall campus planning has great merit.
Great, thank you.
Your turn.
Hi, Carla Kelly, City Club member. As we think about the city, I happen to live in the suburbs, and we talk about the city very often as though those suburbs don't even exist and aren't part of it. What is the thinking as you're going forward with this planning of how it integrates with the very mostly prosperous suburbs that surround the city and whose people have to be enticed to come into the city to take advantage of it?
Well, I can speak about that a little bit from a relationship building and programming standpoint. So OMSI partners with a lot of communities and school districts, including those outside of the center city of Portland. In fact, we have some of our strongest partnerships are with school districts just outside of PPS. And what we have found is that the desire and the need for us to be in those communities and not just at OMSI is pretty remarkable. People have asked us repeatedly to don't do drive-by programming. We want you here more often. We want a relationship with you in our community, and that's how we want to feel connected. And so that is the approach that we're taking. And so really, as we're talking about doing the OMSI district development, obviously we want it to be welcoming to everyone. We want it to be exciting and a destination and everything else. But the goal really is for OMSI and our partners to then be taking the resources that we hope to gain and continuing to be in community with people and really helping them to access and pursue interests and information that they want to learn about. Another example is we have a very tight relationship with Crane School District, if you're familiar with them, way out in the eastern part of the state. And when we do programming with Crane and we work with the teachers and the students about what they're interested in, they want to know about the future of agriculture. They want to know about agricultural technology and how to learn those skills and stay in those communities. And they're not going to come to Portland for that. So we think a lot about that and about how we're taking what we learn and we're combining it with the expertise that lives within community, and then we're doing the work in community. And that's how we're thinking about connecting it.
Put just a brief comment about the Institute for Metropolitan Studies. Nolan's everywhere. He's on that board also. But we have 6 other people from throughout the metropolitan area helping to design approaches where Portland State and the Institute may be able to add some value. There is, I think, a tremendous opportunity dealing with food. That was part of the tail end of the week's programming with the Business Summit. Portland is kind of the food capital of the United States. You can't, every other issue of the New York Times is replete with laudatory stories. But this is something that ties together people throughout the metropolitan area and throughout the state. Everybody eats. And being able to strengthen those relationships, I think, is really a tremendous opportunity. Portland was the genesis for our restaurants recovery bill that resulted in 100,000 grants to help them recover from the COVID crisis. And it's led to a standing institution dealing with independent restaurants. There are relationships here that we can build on that will make a huge difference. It brings people together, it adds value, and it ties people throughout the state. And that's, again, part of what we want to do.
Thank you. Mike Dennis, City Club member. When you were last here at City Club, Congressman, you gave us all homework. You asked us to read the Kresge Foundation report on how the Detroit foundations in the community, the philanthropic community, united to help turn around Detroit. And I'd be interested, I tried to be a good student and read it, but interested to hear from all of you how you see the philanthropic community and foundations in particular potentially coming together to get behind these big, grand moves and gestures we're trying to make for the Central City.
I'll jump in on that one. So 1803 Fund has been wondering that as well. And so we actually went out to visit Detroit, and the Dan Gilbert Foundation team wasn't exactly Kresge, but we know they have been a partner in their efforts. And it was interesting to, I don't know if you all know, but just maybe 10, 12 years ago, Detroit was going to go bankrupt, if you remember that. And they had, and Dan Gilbert, as well as some others, elected officials and folks who were community members, really talk about what can we do to ensure that Detroit not only does not go bankrupt, but is actually a prosperous community. And as we were thinking about our work at 1803 Fund, we said, they did not go under. And matter of fact, they are prosperous and excelling in some ways, and especially their central city. So the 1803 Fund had a chance to go out and visit for 2 days with their team, get to learn from community members, what they were doing in downtown specifically. And there's been, quite frankly, huge investments by Dan Gilbert and his team and family of businesses that has been a central partner in seeing the rebuild, along with Kresge Foundation and some others. And so part of what I walked away with is thinking about, who is whom, whether it be someone who has a wealth of funds and investments and interests, is investing in our central city. One question. Two is, how are we really building together to come together around a central plan and to think about what is my work as 1803 Fund, what's ZGF Fund work, what is OMSI's work, what is Prosper Portland's work, as well as a number of organizations, and can we actually get in alignment and formation and work together to see that through?
I think that's extraordinarily important. They had some other problems there. 30 members of the city government were indicted or in jail. It wasn't just bankruptcy, it was hopeless corruption and mismanagement. But it was also at the time when their major businesses, think of the auto industry, going bankrupt. And Detroit had its own bankruptcy. So the notion of people rallying to be able to fill these gaps and move forward, I think is inspirational. I'm glad you had a chance to see them. I'm glad we had a chance to have them come out and visit with us and challenge our own philanthropic community, putting an item on the table for maybe a Portland fund. We've got OCF, we've got individual people who've been doing things. I think if there was a Portland foundation, that people would step up and supplement some of what you're talking about. But the streetcar, and Dan Gilbert put several $100 million of his own money in building a streetcar in the Motor City that didn't have any regional transit. And it was transformational in terms of what happened with the streetcar. And if you've been there lately, how they've tied together those sporting venues. I mean, that's part of the ecosystem they had to structure. We've already got that in place and an opportunity to expand it now, this year, with extending the streetcar up to Montgomery Park and down to John's Landing, and the exciting development in the old ESCO properties, talking about the private partnerships. These are elements there. It's not low-hanging fruit. In some senses, it's picking it up off the ground.
Hi, my name is LeJune Thorson. I'm a City Club member, and I'm the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. And I want to ask you about the proposed ferry system using the river for transit. Would initially run from Cathedral Park to River Place. And we think it could be an economic driver to prosperity downtown, and I just wanted to get your take on it. Thank you.
Don't you two each have a stop on the ferry line?
Yes. I mean, we've all been in conversation about it. And, I think we are really in favor of pursuing dollars to do a feasibility study, which I understand is one of the next steps. I mean, I know that we've done some initial work there, but if there are transportation dollars that are specifically focused on ferry systems, I feel like we should get organized to pursue them and see where it goes. We've been in preliminary conversations with Frog Ferry about maybe OMSI could be a stop in the future. Current dock couldn't handle it. But in the future, we are totally open to that. And the idea is that people can get up and down the river in more places. But your question actually brings up for me a slightly different comment that I wanted to make that hasn't come up exactly in this way. There are a lot of river developments or redevelopments that we're talking about, including AVT and OMSI and the Bowl, Ross Island, and getting that figured out. And the good news is that we're all talking to each other. So we have a lot of informal conversation between our projects and sharing information and sharing resources, because we are already thinking about how are we considering the river a collective resource for the community, and how are we being thoughtful about how all of these different redevelopments and helping people to reconnect to the land and the river can reinforce each other. There's not really a formal body for that. But that might be something that would be interesting to consider, Nolan, as that group goes forward, because there is a lot of energy and it's kind of already happening.
I appreciate your comments. I think they're spot on. I think people are willing to explore good ideas, but I think we're entering into a slightly different phase. Transit is going to be pounded. This administration is taking away resources right and left for transportation and transit. People have visions of having a new bridge across the Columbia River. The commitment that had been made earlier in the Albina community, those funds are gone. And so we're going to have to be, I think, rather ruthless about evaluating what will add the most value, how we can capitalize on the value, on things like AVT and what's happening at OMSI, where it has the potential of generating resources. But having things on the table that require more new money without a sense of how that's going to happen, I think is a distraction that's not particularly helpful. I mean, I've spent a lifetime coming up with what I thought were great ideas. But then we had a federal government, a state government, and we had an opportunity with the region to go out and secure those dollars. I think this is a different climate, and I think it's going to require a very rigorous screening. I see my friend from the Metro Council start nodding his head because he's in the middle of this with JPAC. This is a different era. It's going to be much harder. It's not that there aren't things we can do that would create value, but the time when we could just go to Washington, D.C., and we could shake the money tree and Senator Hatfield would find it for us, or that we went to the public with proposals. Our public has been amazingly generous, but I think there is deep concern about the level of taxation and who's paying it, and equity. Those are appropriate questions. And I don't think we've gone far enough to do that, and we're going to have to do a very good job of picking out ones that we're going to make the investment that we've already made that would have greater rate of return versus things that will be a pleasant distraction but might not lead anywhere. I don't think we've got that option anymore.
There may be some new ideas coming forward in that regard. I know. We'll wait.
Wynn Wakala, City Club member. Earl, with all your decades in Portland, what is the one dream and vision you've had for downtown, like some structure or something that hasn't happened yet that you would love to see?
Well, my goal is for us to be able to follow through on these great plans we've got for the Central City, to be able to build on the momentum, to take the opportunities with the OMSI Quarter, with Portland State University, with AVT, the opportunity sectors. And my dream is that we're able to capitalize, build on them, and bring them to fruition. There are a number of them that are on the table who could potentially take off. It's going to be harder in this environment, but I do think that we've got really smart people who've done really visionary things. We've got a lot that's in process right now, and having commitment from our regional government, from the city, to help build on what's there and finding ways to get to yes is my vision.
Hi, Chris Smith, City Club member, a member of the research board. And since Aaron mentioned Ross Island, I'll take the opportunity to plug the fact that City Club has a research committee working on the future of Ross Island. So look for an exciting report early in the new year. My question, all of you are involved in creating new or revitalized districts. And in Portland, we have zoned for ground floor activation. And I was guilty of that on the Planning Commission. But in the age of e-commerce, we're increasingly seeing vacant storefronts even in our healthy neighborhoods. So what is the future model for ground floor activation that we can use in all our districts?
I think we probably have all the space we need. There's a program called No Vacancy, which I think is super interesting because it's which Prosper Portland is funded largely. And it's focused on not just retail, but the arts and a whole range of other things that activate ground floors. I would also say that if you think about the great cities around the world, after you leave Main Street, many of the ground floors are not what we would consider active use. They have residential or other kinds of ground floors that are perfectly successful. So I think a little attention to where we really need it and where we can find other ways to have an attractive ground floor that creates visual interest as you're walking through the city, but not necessarily an active use with a person on the other side of the glass would be great. There's so many buildings where they're designed for active use and then it's an office space and then they frost the glass. I'm not sure we're doing what we thought we were doing with a lot of those spaces. And you could argue, yeah, but in 50 years, then we'll have enough people and they'll be all filled with retail. But I think we should just look at those cities where they really have thriving cities and uses other than what we would consider active use on the ground floor.
I'm not a city planner like this gentleman here. And as we are stepping our foot into development, we have some passive investments, but here we are becoming the developer. And as we envision the rebuild of Albina, we are absolutely thinking about ensuring that it's not only vibrant, but that we are seeing Black joy. And as we think about, ground level, whether, again, as Nolan just said, whether it be housing, whether it be business, whether it be opportunities for learning for children, that it is vibrant, beautiful, and that not only is a reflection of our community, but also for Portland as a whole.
I think I would just add to that I think we need to plan for maximum flexibility. What we're finding even right now with our partners who are going forward in the design of the first affordable housing in the district, which is a partnership with Hacienda CDC and Edlin & Co. So OMSI is not a housing developer, but I just want to make clear of that. But is that because of the ground floor height requirements, we have to go through a very expensive process to go and amend our master plan for the district because it does not make an efficient layout for housing. So if we're talking about really trying to support housing development in the center city, then we need to have a more efficient way once those blocks have been identified or those locations have been identified to go back and say, you know what, this ground floor height doesn't make sense if we're going to put housing here in this particular development, and have a faster and less expensive way to make those amendments.
We have time for two more questions.
I appreciate, Aaron, you bringing us back to reality. This is important. But I think the retail environment is going to be a long time in terms of, I think people are addicted to e-commerce. I mean, I hate it. I've never bought anything on Amazon. I just, bricks and mortar, small business, but that's where the arts come in. That's where our cultural investments, that is food. And these are things that we can use to revitalize, along with what we've seen with AVT, what we're doing at OMSI. But thinking that it's not going to be like it was. And I think we ought to be open to ways that we make that adjustment going forward. It's not that we can't do it. It's not that we can't fill it, but it's going to look different. And I think traditional retail is not going to happen.
Hi, this is Bobby Regan. I'm programming chair for the City Club. This is a question for D'Artagnan and the 1803 Fund specifically. I think there are so many of us who are absolutely inspired and excited, encouraged by the work that you're doing. And I'm wondering if you could tell us how we either individually or collectively can support your work.
Didn't you say a Portland Foundation Fund, Earl?
Yeah.
You know, it's a wonderful question. I think there will be opportunities to engage in not only planning as we're thinking about what the community and rebuild Albina looks like, but also partnerships across Albina, across the city, along with, of course, we are always looking for investors. So, you know, it's interesting. I think in certain places across the nation, I go and I talk about this initial seed funding of $400 million. In some communities, it sounds like, oh my goodness, you have the world at your fingertips. And I'm like, not with a 1,000-year vision, we don't. And as much as we are appreciative, of course, of the initial investment by Penny and Phil Knight, it is not enough for what we want to do long term. And as we think about sustainability of our efforts, you know, over the next year plus, Rakaya and I and some other members of our team will be on the road and really thinking about how do we raise more funds for this vision that we have. So those are a couple things I would say as far as engagement. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patty, this is our last question.
The very last. Okay. I'm Betsy Wright, City Club member. There are so many people my age that are steadfast Portlanders who will be staying here but get discouraged. There's so many great ideas that have flown through today. Is anybody collecting Portland Hope and working on a website and that you can just give to people, and if you want to follow a certain path or a certain area you're concerned about, you can find out who's working on something? Who would be if there isn't that, where would it happen?
So the closest thing we have to it is the report that I mentioned earlier, which puts a lot of these initiatives on the map and tells you about them. But this came up because we realized that when we got all those 55 leaders in the room, everybody had their own understanding of their own slice of it. And so we should have a website that not only tells you what's happening, but I want to volunteer. Okay, here's options in the arts. Here's options in education. I want to donate. And so thank you for reminding me about that. And maybe we'll talk about it in the roundtable. Yeah, I don't know if they're all documented on a website clearly. They're going to be launching it in 2026. Okay, City of Possibility will be launching a website like this in 2026.
So I'm not speaking to that last question, but I forgot one thing I want to mention as Patty is coming up. As we are rebuilding Albina, our work is really central in Albina, but we are here to serve all of Black Portland. And to that end, from our partnership standpoint, we have made initial investment into the new reopened Portland Art Museum. And so if you haven't had a chance to go out, please do so. And you will also see a dedicated gallery for a new black gallery, which is called the Thelma Johnson Street Black Art and Experiences Gallery. So we are a partner with Portland Art Museum within that, and so that's one of our investments directly into Central City and the Portland Art Museum.
Well, a huge thank you to our panel for what is the fourth Friday Forum on the subject of downtown Portland this year. The end of a successful year of rediscovered Friday Forums, shall we say. That concludes our program and the last one of the year, in fact. So thank you again to our season sponsors, who are AARP Oregon, Chevron, Fight Against Sexual Trafficking, and the Don Sterling Fund for Oregon Community Foundation. Thanks for their support, and thanks to each of you for spending the time with us. One final item as a reminder to learn about upcoming City Club programs, including our next Friday Forum on January the 9th, with retiring Portland City Administrator Michael Jordan. Visit pdxcityclub.org. Sorry, I always get that wrong. Thanks again to former Congressman Earl Blumenauer and our panelists, Aaron Graham, D'Artagnan Kaliman, and Nolan Lienhardt for joining us. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much.